Welcome to the podcast. It is the Monday before Christmas, and all through the house, I'm working on the rest of that rhyme. So give me some time to work on the rhyme about what's in the house. What is it? The 22nd. Is it the 22nd? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, it's the 22nd Monday. That opening could have been so much smoother, but let's get right to it. I want you to listen to this. This is kind of exciting. Many of you are familiar with it. Maybe you've even heard it before, but it is exciting to hear it again.
But I want to say something here. The only thing that is truly served as an anchor of the United States of America is that we have been, and by the grace of God, we always will be a Christian nation.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. This is, of course, Turning Point Action, TPUSA
now,
conference.
I want to be explicit because, of course, the fake news media will twist everything that I say.
Uh-oh.
I'm not saying...
Uh-oh.
Do you feel about them the same way I do? I'm not saying you have to be a Christian to be an American. I'm saying something simpler and truer.
Yes.
Christianity is America's creed. The shared moral language from the Revolution to the Civil War and beyond. Across that history, our country's major debates have always centered on how we could best as a people please God.
Well, that's definitely gonna tick some people off. Don't you think? I mean, it is. It's gonna tick some people off. It's gonna be misquoted, misinterpreted, but we are a Christian nation. However, that's starting to change. And the changes that are occurring are going to hurt a lot of people politically, especially if they don't fight to protect the Christian foundations of this country.
That creed, think about it. That creed motivated our understanding of natural law and rights, our sense of duty to one's neighbor,
yes,
the conviction that the strong must protect the weak, and the belief in individual conscience. Even our famously American idea of religious liberty is a Christian concept. Because we're all creatures of God, we must respect each individual.
Okay, so I agree. I mean, who wouldn't agree with that when you think about it? We are all created by God in the United States. We respect everybody's religion and so much more. Now, if you give me a second here, I'm going to pull up another soundbite. Just give me a second here. Let me get this soundbite here. I'm going to get another one, and I want you to compare the difference between JD Vance, who has now been endorsed by the very sparkly and independently wealthy Erica Kirk. Am I still allowed to say that? Anyway, yeah. JD Vance, vice president, has been endorsed by Erica Kirk for 2028. So you can already see, and I think there was a reason for this, and I'll explain it in a second. And we're back with this clown, Lindsey Graham Cracker. Senator Lindsey Graham Cracker, who I wouldn't trust as far as I can bench press him. Just like Rabbi Ted Cruz, don't trust him. There's a lot of people I've stopped trusting over the years. I started out trusting them. Sometimes I would trust people because the party told me to, or I felt the need to because they held some type of position of respect or honor Once you realize that these people do not hold positions of honor and respect and dignity, they hold positions of power, money, and manipulation. And they look out mostly for themselves, or most of them put themselves first. More people are realizing that. That's why the JD Vance quote was so important. Now, is the JD Vance quote a misdirection? Because JD Vance is part of, to quote Mark Levin, the first Jewish president's administration. Mark Levin last week, I don't know if you saw, called President Donald Trump the first Jewish president. So that's why it was so interesting to see that. So part of me says this is a strategy. So we're looking at, we're looking at JD Vance, what a rebel, throwing around the C word like that, saying Christianity over and over again at a TPUSA event when so many of the big donors are pro-Israel. Yee. I mean, keep in mind, this is on the heels of Ben Shapiro melting down. And from what I understand, he lost his horse. That little tiny horse he rode in on, he lost it. Don't you worry, he's got plenty of money. He's independently wealthy, so you don't have to worry. He'll be okay. He'll be okay. So compare what JD Vance just said to what this clown puppet says.
Iran, they're up to no good. We obliterated the Iranian nuclear facilities. We did not obliterate Iran's desire to have a nuclear weapon. The regime hadn't changed at all. They still want to kill all the Jews, consider America the great Satan, and purify Islam. Are they regenerating their nuclear capability? Are they building more ballistic missiles that could hurt Europe and Israel? I don't know, but there's evidence that suggests they are. I would recommend, if there's credible evidence that Iran is going back into the enrichment business at other sites, that they're trying to build more ballistic missiles to terrorize Israel and maybe Europe, that we hit them before they can do that.
Uh-oh.
The one thing I've learned about radical Islam, the only language it understands is force. So I am hopeful we can put Hamas on a time clock. The trend lines in Lebanon are, quite frankly, optimistic. The Lebanese government has decided to call for Hezbollah to disarm. If Hezbollah gave up their heavy weapons, that would be a godsend for Lebanon and the region.
So I have to apologize. I thought I had another soundbite set up for this. So give me a second. Let me look through my. Let me double check, see if I can bring up the other soundbite that Lindsey was saying. Okay, I just found it. I brought up the wrong one. I apologize for that. This is the one I really want you to pay attention to. The other one was, a lot of that was propaganda. I have never believed a lot of the propaganda about Iran. The reason I don't is because I believe so much of the propaganda in the early 2000s about Iraq and about Al-Qaeda. Basically, I believed a lot of what the Bush administration said. So, and I'm less embarrassed than I was then. But that's why, if people wonder why I am so skeptical, that's why. I'm not cynical, really. I mean, I do believe there's good in people, most people, but we've allowed too many bad people to get in our government. So I'm very skeptical. And I believe very little of what Lindsey Graham says, because like Mike Huckabee, I think Lindsey Graham is a sellout. Anyway, this is the one I wanted you to hear.
I think support for Israel is strong in the Republican Party. I can't imagine a nominee in 2028 being the Republican nominee. If you want to run for president as a Republican in 2028 and you don't show strong support for Israel, I don't think you can win. To our friends on the Democratic side, I hope you'll up your game. I hope you'll realize that Israel's not the problem. The problem for peace is not Israel. Israel signed an agreement with 6 Arab countries. The problem in the region is Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah. They're the ones that want to destroy Israel. I think support for Israel is strong in the Republican Party. I can't imagine a nominee in 2028 being the Republican nominee. If you want to run for president as a Republican in 2028 and you don't show strong support for Israel, I don't think you can win.
Does that say it all for you? Hopefully people understand it now. Now, I understand, excuse me, if you are a hardcore Zionist or a big Bibi fan, I understand you've probably already, stopped following me or unsubscribed. But the realists and the critical thinkers that are staying around, this is what I was concerned about, the laws, the censorship. And then finally, they're just coming right out and saying it. You better be a strong supporter of Israel, or you're just not going to win. I'm fascinated by that. I mean, when you think about it, look how far we've come as far as that level of control. So many people have a hard time believing that goes on behind closed doors. This is why the JD Vance thing, and I wish I didn't play the wrong Lindsey Graham thing, but in a way I'm glad I did, because it's all part of this tapestry, this thing that they're putting together that convinces us that if we don't support Israel, oh my gosh, I think people are awakening to that. That's why I think they're awakening to the tail wagging the dog. I think that's why people are so upset. Anyway, I want to talk about a couple things that I was correct on. Someone suggested to me that I do this more often than not because so many of the mainstream people were wrong on it. And it was a friend of mine. And he said, you are right a lot. And you don't bring it up. Because maybe, and I said, well, I don't want to beat people over the head. I don't want to be that guy. I told you so. I told you so. But I was that guy who broke some stories, exposed the truth. And I was also that guy that says, when the provable evidence and the facts come out about certain things, I will remind you. Now, I was hoping I would be reminding you from the radio, but at the moment I'm starting a 4th year of podcasting. I was hoping back years ago when I said, I'm going to go on my show when it's proven that the COVID vaccine was not only ineffective, it was also unsafe and in some surveys dangerous. I'll be telling you about it. So now I'm telling you about it. In fact, the latest study, it was a censored study and now it's gone public. And this happened a lot during COVID. There were studies that were we weren't allowed to see, because if the study didn't go their way, what would they do? They would hide it, like the Epstein files, which we're never going to see. Our censored study showing mRNA injections induce severe genetic disruption. Okay. The genetic disruption is linked to cancer, which is shot through the roof among people that got the shot, and chronic disease, which is up. Now this survey, and I'll give you the link, the study is peer-reviewed and published. A lot of this stuff was going around when I was talking about it in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, lost revenue over it, lost subscribers over it, whatever. At first, I kind of held back a little bit. It's not like I never called anybody stupid if you're on your 5th booster shot. I never said that. I just tried to induce people to stop, But again, COVID was a false flag. And in a minute, we're going to talk about false flags. Just a few things. We've talked about false flags before. We've talked about propaganda before. We've talked about predictive programming. We've talked about brainwashing. We've talked about all the things that advertising uses, government uses, the media uses. They all work together Some of the biggest ad agencies are with the government. The government says, look, I don't know how we're going to shove or sell. I don't know how we're going to shove Obamacare down people's throat. I don't know how we're going to sell this to them. I have an idea. Why don't we just tell everybody your premiums will go down? Everybody on earth will have insurance. You can choose your own doctor. There'll be such a selection. And that all was crap. An ad agency put that together. That's part of, well, for lack of a better word, it's a psyop. And psyops are all different levels. COVID was one. There's a lot of them out there. That was one of the biggest. A lot of people think the transgender thing is a psyop. But we will talk a little bit more about psyops in this episode. Oh yeah, we're right on time. So Fulton County, shifting gears to something else that I was correct on that I wanted to share with you, and I said I would bring it up. It is official now that Fulton County, Georgia, has gone on record and said, we do not dispute 315,000 votes lacking poll workers' signatures were included in the 2020 election tally. Now, the last time I checked, didn't Trump lose that by, what did he lose that vote by? Was it something small, though, wasn't it? It was like 8,000 votes or 9,000 votes. Here we go. I was wrong. Here, Joe Biden won the state of Georgia by 12,000 votes. But now we're hearing from Georgia, as I predicted, and you'll be hearing from Nevada, and you'll be hearing from, it's all going to come out. Because as the heat is on, these people will come out. They'll say, oh my God, we made a mistake. Sorry it took so long. And eventually the truth will come out that the election of 2020 was stolen. And there was so much misinformation about it. And that's another great psyop. The actual theft of it wasn't the psyop. The controlling the narrative was the psyop. And I'm going to explain that in a second, okay? I thought those were two great things to use as an example. I also think how Israel is being, how the whole Gaza thing, that's a huge psyop. That would have no legs if we didn't have the characteristics of a psychological operation and propaganda in there. One of the biggest psyops, I think, and I forget who I heard this from. It was one of the guests on one of the shows I watch. He was in military intelligence for like 18 years or whatever. And he said the biggest reason people rally around Israel right now is Israel did a great job of convincing Americans in particular, especially Christians, that Palestinians are animals. And you hear that term all the time. I hear some of my friends use that. That's the talking point. They're not human. They're inhuman. They're animals. These Arabs, these Palestinians, these people living in Gaza, they're not even human. This is a psyop. And once you get to that point in your brain, you're no longer blowing up little boys and girls and men and women and old men and old women and pregnant women. You're blowing up people that, according to Israel and now the machine in America, they've characterized those people as animals. Now, this is the same thing, the same psyop. Psyops have been around for 2,000 years, if not more. Same thing they did with the Japanese. I'm not going to use all the names that some I learned from my grandfather and some I learned from studying history for the last 50 years on my own. I learned most about history after I got out of school. And I'm proud to say that. Because if I was still following what I learned in college, getting my political science degree, and what I learned in history and international studies, what I learned in college and in high school about that, I would be stuck in the damn psyop still about how the Viet Cong, they're not human, right? In fact, it's exactly what the Nazis did to Jews, Christians, Polish people, French people, whatever their enemy was. Once it's in your mind that there was a big bombing, oh my God, who was attacked? People in Gaza. Oh, remember the last time you had a conversation about this? Think about it. And I know people in government. Well, you've heard it. You've heard it. You've heard people in media and government. These people are animals. You know who are animals? Cartel people, the horrible things they do. Anybody who is embodying evil, I think you could say they're savages, they're animals. What comes to mind is what the cartels do to each other. I don't know if you're familiar with the technique of hanging someone's body from a bridge in a village or something. It's a big thing, huge during the cartel wars, but it's pretty standard. You know, we saw it in the Middle East with the Blackwater guys. They were burned and hung from a bridge. But the whole hanging the body from the bridge or putting a body on a post, that's been around. Again, all this goes back. The psyops go back. The techniques of torture go back. So to get people to cross that line and say it's okay to take out a hospital or a school because they're like animals. And there's people in our government that believe that. I don't. I think it's part of a psyop. I think any time if you're not going after, again, this is kind of a weird stretch here. Or maybe it isn't. If you're okay with a little bit of pedophilia or a little bit of sexual assault or molestation in government, which most people seem to be, but you want to wipe out everybody with a pulse in Gaza because Bibi Netanyahu told you, that's a psyop. All right, let me hit a few more sound bites, and then I want to talk a little bit about if you think it's a psyop, how do you know? What are some of the things? And we've talked about this before. I've shared some of the books. I have so many great books on this that I've read over the years, and I've kept them all in one part of my library about everything from MK Ultra to mind control to persuasion to advertising to psyops to propaganda. It's just, and there's all little things that overlap in it. But there's a handful of things that are fairly consistent, and I do want to share those with you. So that's exactly what we're going to do. But I do have a couple more. In fact, I'm going to play those right now, a couple more sound bites for you. Okay, this is Mike Glover, former spec op guys, or special operations guy, excuse me. I always forget, is he a SEAL or Ranger or Green Beret? I watch about half a dozen of these guys, and I compare notes between them. They're very savvy, obviously, with military issues, and they've all been in combat. They've all been, they're all trainers right now. They all have their own types of courses and stuff. And I'm going to say, I think they're all America first. So I take what they say seriously. And I have several law enforcement guys that I watch, and then I know a couple that I'll call and say, am I crazy to think this? Am I crazy to think that? And usually if my one detective friend who's been a detective now for like 27 years, and he says, no, that's exactly what's happening or whatever, then that gives me a little more confidence when I'm doing my research and stuff. So as of late, we can't really do a segment without bringing up Mr. Kirk. And the question was asked to Mike Glover, the former member of Delta Force and a Ranger as well. He had this to say.
I don't even know if I should say this.
I think you should absolutely say it.
I think the entire thing stinks. And I could say this. The day after, I talked to a high-level CIA official. Very high. And he told me, I don't even know if I should say this.
I think you should absolutely say it.
Okay, so just so you know, that's a little loop that they put in there, not me. That's just to tease you into the video. And you know how I feel about editing. I didn't feel the need to edit that out. I figured you'd figure that out. But in case you didn't, and you're saying, well, wait a second, didn't he just say that? He did. They take a little piece, they put it on the front end, they drop it in a front load or a front roll or a promo or something, because you see this retired Delta Force operator, and then I don't even think I should say it. Oh, I think you should say it. So obviously you're going to want to hear it, right? So sometimes that's how it works. My friends tell me I should do that with my podcast. I should take pieces of it and put there and that, and then pretty soon, you're working a 10-hour day. And I don't want that anymore. I know a lot of people like to say, a lot of podcasters like to say, I'm working 90 hours a week. No, you're not. Unless you have so much truth. But what I notice about other podcasters, not the ones I'm sharing with you, obviously, and not this show, but so many podcasters are making a great living just repeating what they're told. I don't think Mike Glover is one of those. I don't think Sean Ryan is. I know a lot of people think Sean Ryan's playing both sides. I think some of the guests he's had on have been incredible. And whether we know it or not, guests that talk to him, they often give themselves away. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 lies of Charlie Kirk's security director on the Sean Ryan show. So one of the reasons I like following some of these guys that have 50, 100, 1,000 times larger audiences than I do is they get great guests, and it's an opportunity for me to see the guest outside of mainstream media packaging. And here's a great example of that. So Glover's talking about immediately after the investigation, what was happening with the FBI and Charlie Kirk.
He told me that the FBI is not cooperating with him, and he is trying to corroborate potential foreign influence and was getting blocked out of every opportunity to confirm or deny that. And it was written off as no foreign influence less than 48 hours in. And this guy has access to the President of the United States. And
So let that sink for a second, sink in. The problem most of us have with the Charlie Kirk murder is the same problem that most of us have. And I speak for people that are critical thinkers and people that pursue the truth and can see through government crap. It's the same problem we have with most major tragedies and things like 9/11 and Jan 6, etc. There's a narrative that comes out so quickly, very quickly, too quickly. JFK is a great example. Within days, we got the guy. Oh, he's dead. So, and all this has been exposed. They've all been exposed as not only conspiracies, but fake. I mean, false flags, not fake. They actually happened, but the stories are fake. Please understand that when we're talking about false flag, and I'll explain we've talked about false flags, but I'll explain psyops and whatever. When you hear, especially in the truth arena, if you hear people saying, yeah, I saw that story, the way they covered it is fake, or what you're hearing is fake, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just meant it didn't happen like they said. For example, we all know damn well 9/11 happened. The buildings went down. We saw, we heard, it was horrific. It just didn't happen even anywhere near what we were told, the way it happened. And you got to realize there's a lot of us that were impacted by that, not just the men and women that went overseas. A lot of us in media were impacted by that because during the coverage, and I remember when I was covering it, I'm talking about 9/11 now, obviously 25 years ago, next year is the 25th anniversary. I remember covering it, and I was looking to people that I used to trust, the time I trusted some of them, to tell me. And then I would convey it. I wasn't in New York. And see, that's what's so dangerous about continuing to support people that lie to you, because not everybody wants to pursue the truth like some of the guys I share with you and women and the way I do. Most people know it's a risk and they don't want anything to do with it. I mean, what's easier? Getting emailed a text or a script and just basically going through their outline and getting a fat check? Or every time something comes out saying, okay, wait a second, wait a minute. Let me tell you, the easier one is the reading the teleprompter. Trust me. I know of what I speak. It's much easier just to show up, go to makeup, and read the teleprompter. Of course, if you're going to makeup with radio, I don't know what's going on, but I don't know. Maybe you're doing a podcast too. Anyway, let's get back to Mike Glover and his assessment on this and what he heard.
Oh, for that to be said from the guy and asking me if I had anybody that I knew on the inside to be able to get information because he wasn't allowed to access it. I'm like, why are you calling me? Tells me everything that I need to know.
So that is such a great point. That's an incredible point. These guys are former special ops, former CIA, former SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers, Marine Recon. There's a smattering of them that I follow. And sometimes they still have security clearance if they're involved in, obviously, security or protection, or maybe they're brought back as a contractor, whatever. But this is what's happening in this administration, and I have heard it from people off the internet, in person, that there are so many roadblocks to transparency, and they're so pissed off about it because they try to get information just so they can have it as law enforcement or military. Roadblock, roadblock, roadblock. And then, as one of my friends said, and I'm quoting him, he goes, and then I turn on the TV and I see either the FBI director, or I'm not going to say what he thinks of Hegseth, or Pete Hegseth, or POTUS saying, we're the most transparent. We've given you everything. These are all the details. And then everybody involved in it has to sit there and go, are you kidding me? And I think that's what's happening with Charlie Kirk. And I think that's what's happening with all kinds of stuff. I think it's happening with Gaza. I think it's happening with Ukraine. And I get it. I get it. I'm a civilian. You're a civilian. Probably. We don't. That isn't. It's about the lies. It's about the lies. It's about the psyop, and we'll talk about the psyop in 1 second. I definitely want to get to that. Okay, Speaker Mike Johnson delivering remarks, of course, at what's been the buzz all of last week and over the weekend. TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, and how people were going at it. I'm not going to lie to you. I was thrilled. I was thrilled. I listened to Steve Bannon. I listened to Tucker. I listened to Megyn Kelly, and I think that was necessary. It was necessary for someone to expose extremely rich, extremely biased little Ben Shapiro. And I'm glad they did, just so you know. Now, the only reason I'm listening to this guy, who I think is very weaselly, and I don't trust him anyway, but you could say that about most people in politics for me now. If you've watched my evolution over the years, if you were listening to me 30 years ago, for example, and it's funny because I'm not really I haven't really changed that much. I've just cut my allegiance to the party and politicians, because there's a big difference between loving your country, loving the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and men and women who are willing to die for it, and respecting those men in the military, and getting a fanboy crush on, oh my God, Speaker Johnson. Most of these people are grifters. And once you realize that, then this comment means something totally different. And here's the comment I want you to hear. And and I'll give you my response to it.
Everything, as has been said here, everything is on the line in the midterms of 2026, and we have much more to do. But if we lose the House majority, the radical left, as you've already heard, is going to impeach President Trump. They're going to create absolute chaos. We cannot let that happen.
Oh, that would be such a bummer. Yeah. Chaos. Woo. Here's the deal. I will never vote for another liar. So that kind of knocks me out of the midterms, doesn't it? Maybe one or two people I know personally that's telling the truth. Okay. So that's my list. Everybody has different lists, right? Mine is, I'm done. If you lie to me, we're done. Just like in real life. I mean, that's the same thing. You might be an acquaintance, you might be someone at work, but I know you're a liar, so you're never going to come into a friendship or a relationship that's any deeper than keeping you at a distance. As far as politicians, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah. And it's tough. It's tough because you make, you certainly don't get rich, but it's a nice side gig. People hire you to speak at fundraisers and banquets, but never again will I do it for a liar, and never again will I do it for anybody that puts Israel ahead of America. And I'm learning. Like I said, there's a big learning curve this year. I think the biggest learning curve took place from October until today. Because when I saw that false flag, are we allowed to say that? I guess we can. Yeah, I think it was October 7th. I mean, I agree with Charlie Kirk. I do agree with Charlie Kirk 1,000%. And when he said it on infotainment, when he was talking to Ben David, when he said it, I was vocally, I was cheering, watching him. I was going, yes, finally. Because he said it looks like there had to be someone on the inside, which means it was done by or coordinated by people in addition to or other than who we suspect. So, of course, it was Hamas. Of course, they were horrible people. And those people that did October 7th, they should be hunted down and killed. But you know what? All of them should. All of the people involved in October 7th. The people that changed policy, the people that dropped the ball, they should all be hunted down and penalized, because you don't do an October 7th without someone on the inside. Just like you don't do a 9/11 without someone on the inside. Just like you don't frame hundreds, if not thousands, of American citizens on a January 6th without those 200 and now 273 agents in the crowd circulating, controlling points of entry and exit, controlling cameras. Yeah, as I also predicted would happen. So I don't really care about the midterms. I wish I did, but I told you in November, not this past November, but a year ago, when I supported Trump. I was doing get out the vote stuff. I was going to rallies. I was doing interviews. I was speaking at events. Everybody knows that. But what did I tell you in January of this year? And my subscribers know this. And if you're new, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome to our little group of about a dozen people, roughly. And I said in January of 2025, I said, look, we just elected you again. Third time's a charm. No excuses. No excuses. And you know, many of us were not only directing that at Trump, we were directing it to the slimy, sleazy, grifting sellouts, like a Mike Johnson, like a Lindsey Graham, like a Mike Huckabee. And boy, did we get an inside look at the level of dirty, filthy, corrupt people that reside in both the Republican and the Democrat Party. So there was a time, and maybe you feel this way, and I know some of you don't because I've been attacked for it. You know, you get those comments. I wonder if they're from bots. Why are you doing this? You're disrupting the party. Why don't you stand? You're so disloyal. I can't believe you're not standing by. Standing by who? I'm America first. I'm not Trump first. I'm not Lindsey Graham first. I'm not Israel first. And Republicans keep screwing us over. Well, what about the Democrats? I know the Democrats probably will. That's why I voted Republican my whole life. And it took me until the early 2000s to wake up. Does it take you a long time to get up? See, normally it takes me like, and my wife can't stand this because the alarm goes off, I'm out of bed. I told my sons too, and one of them does it, one of them doesn't. The minute that alarm goes off, you have to put your feet on the ground. You cannot roll back over when the alarm goes off. So I'm very good in real life about doing that. The alarm goes off, my feet are on the ground. If I shower in the morning, sometimes I don't. It's not a hygiene thing. But I'm in and out of the shower. I'm in and out. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. We're talking like 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 11 minutes there, 1 minute there. And I have one son that takes like 47 minutes to get going. I just noticed I have paint on my finger. Do you see that? Yeah. I know, earlier today. Remember I told you last week, my wife said if I didn't finish painting the bathroom, there would be hell to pay. And, you know, she is a licensed, you know, concealed weapon carrier, and I'm not going to push it. She said, we have guests coming Christmas Eve. And if this isn't, you're going to be, and, you know, I take her, let me put it this way. I take my wife much more seriously than the Congress of the United States. Let me just put it that way. She does deliver. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Let's quickly talk about PSYOPs. And I hope those sound bites came together. I guess we'll find out soon enough. But I want you to make that comparison. I want you to think what JD Vance said. And it was so, didn't it seem out of place to you? I mean, I'm thrilled by it because we are a Christian nation. We're built on Christian values. It's biblical in a sense. You know, we used to teach the Bible in school, all the stuff, school prayer, the Christianity. Anyway, it just seemed out of place because for the last how many months or how many weeks, we've all been warned and we've all been indoctrinated on the importance of Bibi Netanyahu and Israel and, well, you know. Okay. Let's talk about it. How do you recognize a psyop? Yeah, we have time. I think we can get this in. Here's the definition. A narrative-driven control or narrative-driven control of perception with the aim of shaping your behavior or reaction. Okay, narrative-driven. COVID's a great example. Every day, the narrative. More deaths, more infections, right? Narrative. It could kill you. Control of the perception. And all the things involved in this, all the things that go with it, are part of a psyop. Or you can call it propaganda, you can call it programming, you can call it whatever that is. They're all part of it. You know, I was thinking of some of the ways that you can be silenced in a psyop, and these are things that I just wrote down. You've heard me talk about them before. I actually speak on this as a topic. As a hired speaker, I speak on propaganda and manipulation and mind control, and we do these little exercises with the audience, and it's amazing how the reactions are. It's nothing against them. It's nothing against, we all have fallen prey to this, and to not admit it, to say nobody's ever conned me, no one's ever psyoped me. That's a dangerous place to be, because psyops we're surrounded by them. We're surrounded by people trying to silence us. And that's part of it. And they use shame, fear, embarrassment, unnecessary exposure, right? Humiliation, name calling, obviously, ridicule, that's in there. This is all part of how Republicans, Democrats, ad agencies, news organizations, it's all how they silence you. Maybe you're watching a panel on COVID, and there's a doctor on the panel. Well, obviously, Dave, if people aren't getting their shots, they obviously deny science, and they're too dumb to know better. Okay, there's some shaming. There's a lie in there. Maybe they don't know that they're going to die if they get this. There's the threat. There's the fear. That was one of the greatest false narratives in history. Now, there are many, and they go back years. We've got some lingering from World War II. We've got some lingering from, obviously, JFK, the global war on terror. I mean, it was launched on a false flag, and then it was fed by false narratives. Weapons of mass destruction. All these guys in a cave had nuclear capabilities. They were going to ride out on their camels and start nuking us. I know the war whores have a problem with this. I get it. And I would say, because it was 27 years ago, Bibi Netanyahu was talking about Iran had nuke capability and they're going to strike within 4 months or something. Don't you think that if some of these people wanted to wipe other people off the face of the earth, they would have done it by now? No, think about it. And you know what? Throw China in there too, and Russia, because now we're getting the big Putin thing. Well, Putin's coming. He's coming. PSYOP. Again, what is it? It's narrative-driven control. So I use COVID because it's such a great example. And you can look in your family, you can look around, you can see the media, you could look maybe, at yourself. I don't know. The narrative-driven control. if you don't get this, you might spread it and kill your grandmother. Narrative driven control. So what do? You go to CBS, you get it. And then when you get the vaccine, and then when you end up getting COVID and you go, whoa, wait a minute, why you said I wouldn't get? Oh, no, you just don't have enough. Narrative driven control. What we meant to say was you just need to have more of the vaccine, more of the mRNA, which I just talked about at the beginning of the segment, that has increased cancer and COVID and side effects, which they call COVID. They call another strain. All narrative-driven control of a perception with the aim of shaping what you say or what you do. That's what a psyop is. Psyop. Don't misgender somebody. What do you mean? Well, that's hate speech. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Narrative. Guy thinks he's a girl. You call him a girl. That's wrong. No, it's not. How do they enforce it? How do they enforce some of this stuff? Shame, fear, embarrassment, violence, legal repercussions, name calling, ridicule, right? These are just some of the notes I've taken. People's trust in government is at an all-time low, and we know that. There's so many different psyops. We'll go through them in another segment, but I just wanted to throw that out there as you listen to the news coverage over the next few days on Epstein, whatever. They failed on Epstein. They had a deadline. The law that was signed and written by Congress and whatever the document was called, which had to be done by the 19th of December at midnight, it said all. It didn't say some. It didn't say we're going to pick and choose. It said all. And every lawyer knows what that means. So we didn't get all. We're never going to get all. And the sum that we got, S-O-M-E, not S-U-M, is completely redacted. There's complete grand jury testimony, like Epstein's, redacted. Why? Probably because it has the president's name in there. I know if you're a Trump fan, you don't want to hear it. I'm a Trump fan. We've got to hear it. We've got to see the truth. We got to find out why the Epstein thing has been such a thorn in everybody's side when it could have been exposed exactly on the schedule that Trump, Cash, Dan, Bongino's out now, and Pam, right? But it wasn't, and it never will be. Remember this also, because I put down some other notes here. Context, when people say, I want to give something context, there's been a lot of context around the Charlie Kirk thing. That doesn't equal a conclusion. So, for example, the Egyptian planes, they exist. I believe they exist. I don't know who was flying them, who chartered them. I now know their flight patterns because everybody's talking about it. And if you think it's normal to have Egyptian planes and military intelligence all up in TPUSA's face, that's your prerogative. I'm looking for context, though. What was the context of it? Doesn't mean there's a conclusion. So making stupid comments like, oh, so now you're saying the Egyptians did it? No, I'm just saying, how many Egyptian military aircraft do we let in and out of our airspace all over the country, from Wilmington to Tucson to wherever? What's up with that? You can't do that in other countries. This is the funniest thing about, and I'll say it, the ignorance of not only media, but a lot of people that follow Mockingbird media. So much of what happens in our country is just not normal, let alone some of it's criminal, but it's just not normal. You can't fly military aircraft into other countries and land them and have people, have people that aren't even supposed to be here flying around getting clearance. That's not normal. It's kind of like 9/11. There were so many abnormalities, excuse me. It's not normal for me to mess up a word that easy, but I just did. There were so many abnormalities on 9/11. But rewind. How do you protect a false flag? With a psyop. You protect a false flag with a narrative. No, it wasn't them, Ken. You know darn well it was them. And then you bring in all the levers to keep people on track with the psyop. Oh, so you think that, Hamas is good? No. Who said that? It's a psyop. Well, I don't want to question Israel anymore because they'll call me some name or they'll say that I'm pro-terrorist or, oh my God, or I'll lose endorsements. Well, that's already happened. And I won't get big subscribers or I won't get sponsors or so-and-so won't hire me because they're offended by, I don't care. I'm going after the truth. And I know what the heck a psyop is. Something else that gets misinterpreted, misconstrued all the time. Correlation does not equal causation. So there could be facts or issues that are taking place around an event, and you may say, well, so-and-so was also at that rally with Charlie Kirk. Okay. Well, he's a known fill in the blank. All right. The correlation maybe, scheduling, location, geography, but where's the causation? Where's the motive? Okay, so again, I'm just going through notes. Opinions do not equal a reason. Now, this I'll bring into something that I'm investigating now thoroughly as I can as a person who doesn't have access to the case, the Rob Reiner case. Which is horrific. I do believe there's a cover-up. I think it's big. And I think it has to do with some very dark things. And I shared that with you, I think, recently in a podcast. I continue to push on that. But again, so far, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's the reason, but it's my opinion. And people that run psyops, people that are brainwashed, people that do not critically think, they have no time for what I just explained. They think it's word salad. Context does not equal conclusion. Correlation does not equal causation. Opinions do not equal a reason. They're just opinions. Why was Kennedy killed? I don't know. I have multiple opinions. He wanted to shut down the Federal Reserve. He wanted to shut down the CIA. He wanted to stop funding Israel. His brother was starting to prosecute the mob heavily. Those are all opinions. Do I think one of those could have been the cause? Certainly. Do I know? Hell no. Should I be allowed to discuss it? Hell yes. Think about what you're not allowed to discuss. Think about what you're not allowed to comment on. And that usually will lead you back to something darker than you expected. Motive can be cumulative. This is what I think happened in the Rob Reiner case. And again, the two examples I shared with you were Billy Crystal, his comments, horrifically offensive, but very revealing, and I thought insulting, even for a roast. And then Al Franken's comments, which were just horrible. You take those two, and something tells me that there was a lot more going on in that house besides, in addition to Nick Reiner's heroin addiction, his coke addiction, his meth addiction, his stints in rehab, his temper. So I think there is a cumulative motive that built over time. I also believe that people that act out in such a horrible way, at some point in their growth or their evolution from child to teen to young adult to adult, they've been a victim, a horrible victim of something. Of something horrible is what I meant to say. That's just from my research. But again, and something else we're learning, complex questions do not have simple answers. Easy questions do. Were you there on Friday? Well, that's kind of a, no, it's not. That's kind of a difficult question. No, it's not. Were you there on Friday? Or did you see this on Saturday? Yes or no? That's not a complex question. When you ask simple questions and someone says, well, that's kind of difficult to answer, and it's not difficult to answer, okay. This is called critical thinking. That's what it is. That's what we do on this show. That's what we do. We ask questions. We pursue the truth. I think we're going to do a whole show on psyops. Like, what do you think are psyops? If you want to weigh in on that, by all means, Ken at KenMatthewsMedia.com, or you can post, obviously, on Subscribestar. But remember that. That's how you recognize it. That's how you recognize it. And if people are using various techniques, like methods to silence you, it's a psyop. So if one idea or opinion must be silenced for another idea to be accepted or to flourish, it's a psyop. Think about that. You know what comes to mind when I think about that? Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has zero tolerance for any narrative other than his own. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a silencing method. Where does that take me back to? A psyop. What part of the psyop? Control of your behavior or your comments. There should be zero silencing. The only reason you should be silenced or stopped is if you're breaking the law. So no one should be allowed to be online threatening people's lives, threatening violence, promoting violence, teaching young people how to do horrible things. That's a crime. We know it's a crime. You don't have to make up new laws. But if I totally disagree with you on Charlie Kirk, on Rob Reiner, on 9/11, on Gaza, there's nothing illegal about that. But what it's doing is, if my idea or your idea overshadows their idea, meaning whoever's running the psyop, and America's run some of the greatest. I mean, America's been running psyops on our government, psyops the hell out of us every day. From nutrition, vaccines, speed limits, schools, to psyop. Well, if you don't have a college degree, how are you going to succeed? Talk about a psyop. I'll succeed like my parents did, or like my grandparents did, or like my uncle did, or like my neighbor who's independently wealthy because he started his own small business. He never went to college. Maybe I could do that. I didn't, though. Would have been cool if I did. But anyway, so anytime people are trying to silence you, and I'm not just talking about shooting you in the throat, okay? I'm not talking about that. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate lever, obviously. But when you get that shame, when you get that fear or threats, that's a psyop. And you see it at all levels. When you start seeing it on entertainment shows, another psyop, the way Christianity is mocked, the way Jesus Christ is mocked. The Bible is mocked. Christians are mocked. Anybody who is not what the media or the government says we should be. What do all the songs, what does all the media, what does all Hollywood, what does the music industry say your daughter and son need to be? Be honest. They need to be promiscuous. They need to experiment with things and drugs and behavior, right? That's what it's, nobody's pushing, hey, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. You don't have to sleep around. That doesn't make you a man. Nobody's pushing that. There's a handful of people that are pushing it. From what I understood, that was Charlie Kirk's belief as well. But what did he get? You know, it's funny how there were so many people that mocked Charlie Kirk and attacked Charlie Kirk. Then after he got shot in the throat, people would show up at his memorial and whatever. But Charlie Kirk was pushing back on a lot of money-making opportunities of the government and the media, which is, you know, the government wants you to eat a certain way, behave a certain way, accept certain things. IRS, another great psyop. Okay, this went too long. Sorry. Have a great Monday. Tomorrow's T-shirt Tuesday. It's going to be a catch up, not ketchup. Like brr, brr. I don't like ketchup actually. I like mustard more on hot dogs. Does that make me pro-American or pro? I don't know. Tomorrow's going to be a catch-up day for T-shirt Tuesday. We're going to have multiple T-shirts because I realized I looked at my schedule in the last 4 weeks. I don't think I've done a T-shirt Tuesday. And I think we're going to bring back the word of the day on Wednesday too, which would be Christmas Eve. Right. Yeah, darn it. We're going to get our act together here soon, maybe one day. Thank you for your support. I will talk to you soon.